All right, so today we're going deep on something a little different.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's bioterrorism preparedness,
Uh-huh.
but not from like a textbook or a government manual or anything like that.
Right.
It's we've got these handwritten notes,
Oh, wow.
and it's almost like someone was like really intensely studying up, on their own,
Yeah.
just like tons of details on like potential threats, different kinds of bioweapons, and how to respond to them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit like peeking into the mind of somebody who like takes this stuff seriously.
I see.
And right off the bat, there are some curious things like smallpox and monkeypox are highlighted,
Hmm.
and phrases like aseptic technique and full PPE are like underlined like crazy.
Okay.
So let's see what we can uncover here.
Sounds a little scary.
Yeah, it's definitely unsettling.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that jumps out at me from these notes is how they define bioterrorism. It's
Right.
not just about like mass casualties.
Yeah.
The definition here is threatened use of biologic agents
Huh.
against person group population
Okay.
for disruption of health intimidation, gaining advantage disruption of society.
Wow.
That disruption element, that really is key.
Yeah.
Think about like the panic after 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that, but with a disease outbreak,
Uh-huh.
cities shutting down economies, grinding to a halt.
It's
It's just,
yeah, it's chaos.
it's just chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more than just trying to kill people. It's about like sowing chaos and fear on a massive scale.
Exactly. And, that makes these notes even more unsettling
Yeah.
because they lay out the potential impact in such a cold and practical way. It's all
Yeah.
about, the hard numbers, the mortality rates,
Yeah.
how many people would get sick, the level of societal disruption.
It almost reads like a manual for a very dark game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the notes break down these potential bioweapons into categories A, B, and C. What makes them different?
So it all comes down to the level of danger.
Okay.
Category A is like the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah.
Think anthrax, for example.
Well,
Easily spread, highly contagious, and often deadly.
Right.
Remember the anthrax scare back in 2001?
Oh, yeah?
That was just letters.
Yeah.
Now imagine a larger scale attack.
Oh, my gosh.
Category B is a step down in terms of lethality,
Okay.
but still a huge threat.
Right.
Things like typhus,
Yeah.
which is a nasty bacterial infection spread by fleas and lice,
Good.
which, by the way, was a major issue in wars throughout history.
Interesting.
And then you have category C, which are agents that are readily available
Okay.
but could be weaponized, like hantavirus,
Right.
which is spread by rodents.
Okay, so it's a sliding scale of how much damage they can cause.
Exactly.
But how would these agents actually be spread?
Okay.
These notes get into some pretty terrifying specifics.
They do, and it's pretty chilling.
Yeah.
We're talking everything from tick-borne transmission,
Yeah.
think Lyme disease, but weaponized,
Oh, wow.
to contaminating food and water supplies.
Right.
Imagine a city's water supply being tainted with something like cholera.
Yeah.
Instant chaos.
Yeah.
And what makes it even scarier
Right.
is that a lot of the initial symptoms of these diseases
Uh-huh.
could be mistaken for like the common cold or the flu.
Yeah. Talk about a delayed reaction time.
Exactly. The notes highlight that early symptoms like skin lesions, breathing problems, or even neurological issues
Right.
could be mistaken for other illnesses.
Yeah.
And that could mean a critical delay in recognizing a bioterrorism attack.
And giving it more time to spread.
Exactly.
And speaking of chilling, there's a whole section on anthrax.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like a case study. Why
Yeah.
the focus on that one in particular?
Well, anthrax has a terrifying history.
Yeah.
It's been used in bioweapons programs before.
Right.
And even those small-scale attacks with letters in 2001
Yeah.
caused a huge scare.
Yeah, for sure.
It's deadly and relatively easy to produce,
Oh, wow.
making it a prime candidate for bioterrorism.
Yeah.
These notes go deep into the science,
Yeah.
describing it as an anaerobic spore-forming bacteria, meaning it can survive in harsh conditions.
Oh, gosh.
And the most dangerous route of exposure is inhalation,
Right.
which then leads to severe, often fatal pneumonia.
The notes even get into autopsy protocols for anthrax victims.
Yeah.
Which is,
It's pretty dark.
yeah, pretty dark stuff.
Yeah.
But thankfully, they don't just focus on the grim stuff.
Right.
There's also a section on preparedness and response.
Yes, and this is where those underlined phrases you mentioned come in:
Right.
full PPE and aseptic techniques.
Yeah.
These are stressed heavily. Remember those images of healthcare workers in hazmat suits
Yeah.
during the early days of the pandemic?
Of course.
That level of precaution would be crucial here.
Yeah.
It's about protecting frontline workers,
Right.
but also containing the spread. The notes recommend things like preemptive vaccination programs,
Wow.
having stockpiles of protective gear,
Okay.
and incredibly meticulous sample handling procedures.
Yeah.
It's all about minimizing the damage if the worst-case scenario were to happen.
That makes me think all the lessons we learned during the pandemic
Yeah.
about social distancing masks,
Right.
the importance of a strong public health system,
Right.
they all apply to bioterrorism preparedness too.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
Yeah, so taking it all in bioterrorism isn't just a Hollywood plot.
No.
It's a very real threat
Yeah.
with diverse agents and a range of motivations behind it. The scary part is how practical it could be,
Right.
but also how devastating the impact could be.
Yeah, and what's fascinating to me is how these notes move beyond just fear-mongering.
Yeah.
They actually provide a blueprint, however chilling, for how to prepare and respond.
Right.
It highlights the need for vigilance, scientific understanding, and most importantly, a strong, coordinated public health infrastructure.
Here's something to think about, listener.
Okay.
If you were in charge of prepping for a potential bioterrorism event, what would be your top priorities based on these notes?
Wow.
It's a heavy question,
Yeah,
but one worth considering,
I agree.
because sometimes knowledge is the best defense.
That's for sure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Looking forward to it.